Hi second graders, it's Miss Harler here with another mini lesson video for you. Today we are going to be focusing on problem and solution. Let's review what problem and solution mean before we get going on the book that I have for you today. So when I think about problem and solution, I like to think of them as two pieces of a puzzle that fit together. We have a problem. It could be a disagreement between two people. It could be a problem, like when we say to solve a math problem, could be that kind of problem. And then when we think of a solution, sometimes the solution is very simple, right? And other times solutions take a long time, or there's a lot of steps to solve the problem, right? We have easy problems, even in math, like 2 + 2, easy things for us to solve. Or sometimes math problems are really hard, like a 3 or 4 step word problem. So it's similar in a book, right? So this is what I drew to kind of explain problem and solution. I drew problem as one puzzle piece and then solution as the other puzzle piece. And you see that they connect together, they work together. So for the problem side, I put a bunch of question marks because I'm thinking, okay, what's the problem? There's something wrong. There's something we have to overcome. There's something that's not right and we need to fix it, right? If it's in a book or just in life. Then looking at the solution side, I put numbers. And the reason that I had numbers in a list there is because I'm thinking of the steps to solve the problem. Sometimes it's only going to take 1 step and the problem is gone. Other times we might need 2 or 3 or 4 steps to get to where we need to be so the problem is gone. So keeping this in mind, keeping in mind that they work together, right? We're presented with the problem and then we find a solution that will fit, right? The puzzle pieces that fit together and then our problem goes away. It's not there anymore. Keeping that in mind, I have a funny book to share with you today that I think you're going to enjoy. And this book has a problem and it also has a solution like most stories do. But we're gonna pay special attention to the solution. Is this a book where the solution is only 1 step, or do we have multiple steps until we can solve whatever the problem was? Okay, let's take a look at this book. I think my class is going to be pretty familiar with this story because it was a favorite in our classroom. But this book is Dog Breath. So this is called Dog Breath and it's by Dav Pilkey. You can think from the title, maybe, what could our problem be? Dog breath. Is he gonna have nice smelling breath or maybe not so much? All right. There once was a dog named Hallie who lived with the Tosis family. Hallie Tosis was a very good dog, but she had a big problem. So they told us right away, right? She had a big problem. So they're making it very clear to us that there's something wrong here. Let's see what it is. Halitosis had terrible breath. Whenever Halitosis opened her mouth, horrible things happened. So you can see she opens her mouth and the paint is peeling from the walls and the goldfish doesn't seem to be doing too well, and even the painting isn't happy about it. So within those first 2 pages, the author told us this dog had a problem, and then they told us what it was. She had horrible breath, and because of that, horrible things were happening. So if I'm looking at my first puzzle piece, problem. Hallie, the dog, has terrible breath. When the children took Halitosis for a walk, everyone else walked on the other side of the street. Even skunks avoided Halitosis. So now they're giving us more information about the problem. We're getting more specifics about it. But the real trouble started one day when Grandma Tosis stopped by for a cup of tea, and Hallie jumped up to say hello. Mr. and Mrs. Tosis were not amused. Something has to be done about that smelly dog, they said. Poor dog. The next day, Mr. and Mrs. Tosis decided to find a new home for Hallie. The children knew that the only way they could save their dog was to get rid of her bad breath. So they took Halitosis to the top of a mountain that had a breathtaking view. So within those first few pages, we learned what the problem was. We learned more about the problem, right? It made other people not want to be around the dog. Things were knocking over because they would have such a reaction to her bad breath. but now we're starting to see the solution, right? Mr. and Mrs. Tosis, so the mom and dad, decided to find a new home for the dog. So mom and dad's solution, let's find a new home for the dog. We're going to have the dog not be in our home anymore. The children don't want to give the dog away, so they said that the only way they could save their dog was to get rid of her bad breath. So the parents' solution is to have the dog leave the home. The kids' solution is to get rid of this bad breath so they can keep the dog, but get rid of the problem. They hoped that the breathtaking view would take Hallie's breath away, but it didn't. So you see there, when you say something's breathtaking or amazing, you say that it takes your breath away. So the kids are hoping that her breath will go away, but it didn't work. Next, the children took Hallie Tosis to a very exciting movie. They hoped that all the excitement would leave Hallie breathless. You can see that suffix there, less, breathless, without breath, which is what they want to happen to the dog. But it didn't. Finally, the children took Hallie Tosis to a carnival. They hoped that Hallie would lose her breath on the speedy roller coaster. But that idea stunk too. The plans to change Hallie's bad breath had failed. Now only a miracle could save Hallie Tosis. Sadly, the three friends said goodnight, unaware that a miracle was just on the horizon. Let's pause here for a moment. Looking back at our picture here, we identified the problem, right? Hallie Tosis, the dog, has very, very bad breath. We had a couple solutions, right? Mom and dad said, we have to give this dog to another family. That was one possible solution. They didn't decide that yet. It was possible. The kids had a couple steps to take, but they didn't work. So sometimes solutions aren't going to work. Just like when you're putting a puzzle together, you might try a piece, but it doesn't fit. So that's what happens with the children in this book. They try to take her to the breathtaking view. They try to scare the breath out of her from going on a scary roller coaster, and they don't work. So sometimes the first thing you come up with isn't the right solution. Let's see if they can find one that's the right solution. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, two sneaky burglars crept into the Tosis house. The two burglars were tiptoeing through the dark, quiet rooms when suddenly they came upon Hallie Tosis. "Yikes," whispered one burglar. "It's a big, mean, scary dog." "Ah, don't be silly," whispered the other burglar. "That's only a cute little fuzzy puppy." The two burglars giggled at the sight of such a friendly little dog. "That dog couldn't hurt a fly," whispered one burglar. "Come here, Poochie Poochie," whispered the other. So Hallie Tosis came over and gave the burglars a nice big kiss. It says slurp. The next morning, the Tosis family awoke to find two burglars passed out cold on their living room floor. It was a miracle. The Tosis family got a big reward for turning in the crooks, and soon Hallie Tosis was the most famous crime-fighting dog in the country. In the end, Mr. and Mrs. Tosis changed their minds about finding a new home for Hallie. They decided to keep their wonderful watchdog after all, because life without Hallie Tosis just wouldn't make any sense. So, there's the end of our book. We reached the ending. The problem was that she had bad breath, and they were going to have to give her away. Our solution ended up being that the dog still has bad breath, but since she was able to scare away the burglars and became a very famous crime-fighting dog, they decided that, okay, maybe it's not so much of a problem. So that was a tricky one because we had the problem. There were some solutions that didn't work, like taking her to the mountain, taking her on the roller coaster didn't work. And then we decided, you know what, maybe this isn't such a problem after all. She kind of solved the problem by herself by taking care of those burglars for the family. So it can be tricky sometimes. Sometimes it's not always very easy, which is the problem and which is what our solution is going to be. But eventually you can find something that fits. So today for your activity, you will have a couple boxes to type into that's going to ask you to write a problem, a solution, and maybe the steps, if there were steps to take to get to that solution. And you're going to be reading a Wonders story that has a problem and solution to go along with that. I hope this video was helpful to you understanding problem and solution, and I'll be back to give you another video next week. Bye.